Ready, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala Rasulil Kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most merciful. We ask Him to send His peace and blessings upon His final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah, jazakumullah khair. Brothers, inshallah we'll get started. So just as a brief introduction to the topic, as you may have seen from the poster, the title is Love-ology, which is a funny title, I know. One of my friends recently in the UK, he called me and he said, "Oh, what are you up to these days, man? Why do I see your face on a pink poster and it says Love-ology next to it? What are you doing?" And then I explained to him what I actually discussed during this, and then he said, "Okay, this is good, this is much needed." So to break it down, what Love-ology actually is in the UK, alhamdulillah, more than 20 cities, especially with students, we give them like a crash course on preparing for marriage. That's what Love-ology is. So we break down the idea or the concept of even love, and this is actually important even before we talk about marriage, because we're in this kind of funny period with this upcoming generation who literally are being raised on Netflix and social media from a very young age, exposure to Hollywood and movies and these things. So when they have an idea or when they have a picture of marriage or what a relationship looks like, they're literally basing it on what they see on the screens, what they see in the films, what they see on a TV series, what they see on social media. So that's actually why I start by addressing this concept of love and what love truly means. And basically it's all about managing expectations before you get married, which is one of the most important things that we can do. So that's why the love side is there. And then of course you have all of the things leading up to marriage. So for the past 8-9 years I've been heavily involved in this space of marriage, especially when it comes to officiating Nikah ceremonies, and working with hundreds of couples over the years. What I've been doing is I've been keeping a very close eye on the trends or the common problems, the common misconceptions, the common issues that they face leading up to marriage, as an example, or a few years down the line after they've been married for some time. Sometimes they actually get back in touch with the Imam to ask questions or to seek advice. So based on this, after looking at hundreds of couples and seeing the problems they're facing or the obstacles they're facing before marriage, or seeing the problems that they face post-marriage, I've been keeping a very close eye on these trends and collecting, you could say, data, and then essentially sharing this during these types of seminars and these types of talks. So the Love-ology one is actually very specific and exclusive to those who are single and those who are looking to get married, or perhaps newly married, right? And then we have other seminars as well, ones that are more focused on those who are already post-marriage life. So this, I assume here we have a mix, alhamdulillah. We have those who are already married, mashallah, and those who perhaps are looking to get married. So I will try to, I guess, tailor around even those of us who are married. As I always say, there's always things that we can learn. Some people think, khalas, once you get married, that's it. It's like you've achieved it. It's done. But as you would know, marriage itself, we as individuals, we constantly require work and improvements and growth, and marriages, relationships always require an investment, and it's a worthwhile investment, because inshallah, if your marriage is good, your home is good, your life is good, inshallah, so we can always essentially work on these things. So even as people who are married, there's always things that we can learn, things that we can work on, inshallah. So the first thing that usually, as I mentioned, we discuss is this concept or this idea of love, which I think is just going to briefly talk about it. And what I usually share is some research or a survey that was done in America, in the States. This was done a number of years ago, and essentially hundreds and hundreds of married couples were surveyed, and they were asked the question, why did you get married? Right? So the question was, why did you get married? As in, why did you choose to marry this person that you're now committed to, you're now formally in a partnership with? So there were a number of reasons given, right? Some of them said, companionship. Some of them said just convenience. Some of them said just because I wanted to have kids with them. But the number one reason, at the very top of the list, right? We could say, I think it was almost 90% of married couples, they said the number one reason was because they were in love. Love, that's it. That was the number one reason, right? And by the way, this research was not it's not limited to Muslims, it's all across the board, right? So the number one reason was love, right? Which I found really interesting. Like, people are getting married because they, this idea of falling in love, being in love with someone, and then deciding to marry them. So this research is very telling, not just in the States, Canada, across the West actually, even in the UK. It's something that's becoming more and more common. Again, with this, the recent generation, the upcoming generation, it's becoming more and more common, and there's this expectation that this is the primary foundation of marriage, of relationship, that you have to be in love. And there's this idea of falling in love, being in love with someone beforehand. Obviously, it's quite a problematic thing. And having love as a foundation for marriage is actually, research shows, it's a very weak foundation for marriage, right? And we'll talk about that. So the majority of people, as the statistics show, are getting married because they're in love, right? And essentially, when you break down what the idea of love is, as we all know here, I mean, it's first and foremost, it's the feeling. It's an emotion. It's a very powerful emotion, right? And there's nothing wrong with having a love or an attachment or feeling towards someone or something. It's even Islamically, we would say that, you can't negate someone's emotion or feeling, because this would not make them human, right? So it's like if we were to say, are you allowed, as a Muslim, are you allowed to feel angry? Are you allowed to feel sad? Are you allowed to feel happy? These aren't really questions we ask. You just assume, yeah, of course, it's a feeling. This is the way we're programmed and wired. You have emotions, and emotions aren't permanent states. They don't stick. So you can be happy, you experience sadness, you experience anger. So experiencing those emotions, that's not bad, that's completely normal to have, right? But can there be extremes in experiencing these emotions, and then what you end up doing with these emotions? Absolutely, right? So let's take the example of anger, right? So let's say a person feels angry. Now, as a Muslim, are you allowed to feel anger? The answer to that is yes, right? Some people, they misunderstand the statement of the Prophet ﷺ when the Sahabi came to him and asked, Ya Rasulullah, give me some advice, and he said, La taghdab, don't become angry. So some people misunderstand this statement, like, okay, you can't even feel anger within yourself. It's impossible, right? Sometimes you feel anger, but then what do you do with that feeling? What do you do with that? Okay, so now some people, when they get angry, they'll maybe say something really hurtful to you. Some people, they might harm you, assault you, their anger out on you. So we would then say in this situation, okay, that's wrong. What you ended up doing, the action, because in Islam you're not judged based on just the feeling, but you're based on the action. It's based on the action, right? That's what you're judged by. So your action there, based on this emotion, that was wrong. Other people, they feel anger, but then they channel the anger in a different way. Some people, they suppress their anger, right? Some people, they vent their frustrations through other means. Fine, no problem, right? Likewise with happiness, you can feel happiness and joy. It's natural. But for some people, we could say the extreme when it comes to happiness is what? Is pride. You get so overjoyed by having something, or let's say you own a nice car and you're so happy with this that now you start to look down on anyone else who doesn't have the same car as you. This is pride. So now we're going to say this is wrong. So likewise, when we talk about love, we're not saying that love in and of itself is a bad thing, right? But if it's misplaced, then yes, it can be. There are extremes to this as well, right? There are extremes. So for a person growing up, we have different types of love. You have different relationships, your parents, siblings, family members, friendships. this type of love is good, right? Of course, the most powerful type is when you get to an age where you're looking to get married, okay, and let's say you're speaking to someone, you feel a level of attraction to this person, you're interested in marrying this person. This is where it can get, this love can get difficult to control, let's just say. And firstly, of course, it goes without saying that we have to also be careful with our wording, because some people, they use love in every context, but love is not the same in every, or a lot of times we can't say that this thing is love. Sometimes the thing is just lust or infatuation. There's a massive difference between the two, right? Love, and then you have lust or infatuation or this deep sense of affection, or you could call it attachment as well. Attachments, they form very, very quickly if you're not careful, right? So when it comes to getting married, this is a massive pitfall. Again, something that I found with many, many young Muslims who are looking to get married is very quickly what happens is they form an attachment to a person that they've just met, to a person that they've barely spoken to, right? They form an attachment. And what this does is it blurs the lines, right? So it means that they can no longer make an informed decision because they're so attached to this person so quickly, right? For whatever reason, now it's as if like there's no other option. You have to marry this person, even if this person is not even the right person for you, even if there are, red flags, even if this person you're not compatible with this person. Maybe because of your feelings, because you're not in control of your feelings now, right? You decide to marry this person, right? Because you couldn't control, even though other people maybe told you couldn't control. So now you decide to marry this person, and then very quickly you realize that perhaps you may have made the wrong decision. This is, of course, a situation we all want to avoid. You want to avoid being in this situation. So you want to make sure that you're, even just outside of marriage context, as Muslims, we're supposed to be, is what we call disciplining the nafs, right? The nafs, we're supposed to be in control of Ramadan every single year. We're training the nafs, but it's not restricted to Ramadan. Even outside of Ramadan, we're supposed to have control over our nafs, our desires, the shahwat, all of these things. Even when it comes to, a basic example is food, right? A person is hungry, so, they desire to have food. But then what happens is you can't control the desires. So what do? You order the starters, but you order the mains, and then you order sides, and then you order desserts, and you order all of this in advance, and then before you know it, it's too much, right? Even your body can't take this amount. But now you've spent the money, the food is there, it's wasted, all as a result of what? Not being able to control one's desires. So we have to keep ourselves in check constantly. Of course, like I said, it goes without saying that this attachment or that you feel towards someone of the opposite gender is natural, and it's very powerful, and very quickly things can spiral. So coming back to the research that was done, now imagine 90% of people are saying that they get married because they feel love. And we've established here that love is just a feeling or it's an emotion, right? Okay, fine. So now feelings or emotions are temporary. Yeah? If you felt sad yesterday, you're not in a constant state of sadness. In between, there will be different emotional states that you experience and go through, right? You'll feel happy at some point, sad, angry, you'll feel different things, right? So imagine love is a temporary state, but you decided to marry someone based on a feeling at that point. That's what it is, really. It's a feeling. You felt attraction towards this person, you felt an overwhelming desire towards this person, and based on that, you decide to marry this person. Right. So now my question is that this love, if you want to call it, this feeling that you experience at the beginning, is that going to last throughout your entire marriage? Right? What do you think? Does it last for the entirety of the marriage? No. How long does it last for? Who knows, right? A few months, a year, 2 years, it could last for, right? But the same feeling that you experience, that you feel at the beginning is not always going to be the same. So what then happens when you don't feel the same way? What happens when that love has kind of come down? What do you do at that point now? Now for a lot of people, again, young, newly married, Muslims, from the experience that I have, they run into a big problem now, because love was the foundation. If love is the foundation, and you're not feeling that love anymore, what do you do next? Do you call it quits now? Is that it? Do you cancel the membership, the subscription? Is that how it works? Is that how marriage works? It's just a trial and error thing? It's not how it works. For us, it's a serious commitment. Of course, there are situations, where, in circumstantially, where divorce is an option. But this is not an option for, you can say, okay, I don't feel love anymore, khalas. There's actually a famous narration of a man who came to Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu when he was the Khalifa. And Umar radiallahu anhu, of course, is, quite old at this stage. The man who came to him is quite old. And the man came to him and said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I wish to divorce my wife. And Umar radiallahu anhu said, Wayhak, what's wrong with you? Why? Why do you want to divorce your wife for, after being married to her for all these years? Imagine you've been married all these years, you've got kids, and why now? What's changed? And the man said to Umar radiallahu anhu that I don't feel love anymore. I don't love her anymore. So Umar radiallahu anhu said, no. What happened to just loyalty and commitment and appreciation? Why? He said, does every household have to be founded upon love? Is love the main foundation for every household, or is there more to it than love, right? What about just all the memories that you have, and the kids, and the appreciation, and the loyalty, and the respect for each other? Isn't that more important than just experiencing or just feeling love? Of course, 30 years, 20, 30 years later, after getting married initially, you're not going to feel the same as you felt when you first got married. That's a given, right? So Umar radiallahu anhu teaches us an important lesson here, that's not the foundation, right? You can factor it in, not a problem. It's not a problem to factor this love, or let's say attraction. We can talk about later as well, people who get married based on attraction. It's important, it's a factor, but it's not the main thing. It's not the foundation for any relationship, because it's too superficial then. These things that you're basing it on are way too temporary, right? Whereas if there's more important things that you base it around, right? Like we'll talk about, compatibility, right? Much more than that. Person's deen and character and compatibility in different areas, this is a far stronger foundation. These things are much longer lasting, right? Much more longer lasting than just a feeling at this point. So anyway, this is why I kind of begin with this discussion on love. It's just important for us anyway, in general, whether a person is looking to get married, or if a person is married, because then of course those who are married would say, well, even if you're not married, you can ask the question, well, if you're saying love is not the strongest foundation for marriage, and if you're saying that love kind of naturally fades or dwindles within the marriage, then what happens then? Like, does that mean every marriage is like loveless? Is that how it's supposed to be? Is that the default? The answer is no, of course not. It's what I'm trying to start with is by redefining what love is, reframing what love is. I'm not saying that love doesn't exist. I'm just saying that especially before marriage, we have a very warped understanding of love. That's what I'm trying to say. When we mistake the love for lust or infatuation. I'm not saying that love doesn't exist in marriage, but it's different to what we expect love to be. So, coming back to the example I gave earlier on about social media, or about whatever, Netflix or Hollywood films, okay, that show you the amazing romantic story of two people coming together and then they live happily ever after, okay, and this is what we grew up watching, then we kind of expect that that's what's going to happen in real life. Yeah, real life is like that. You get married and then it's just naturally a happily ever after scenario. But then what I always say is that nobody shows you that movie you just watched, right? Nobody shows you the sequel to the movie. Where does the movie end? When they get together, happily ever after. Khalas. The Disney film ends there. The prince and princess get together. Khalas. You don't see the sequel when they get married and 2 years into marriage, right? What happens in the household? I'll show you this. So people think, okay, that's it. So that's the end. Marriage is the end. No, marriage is the beginning. So now the point is that you got to work on, right? Everything, any relationship requires effort. Imagine, think of a friendship that you have. I'm sure all of us here, we have a friendship, or we have friends, we've known them for, let's say, more than 10 years. We have to, maybe childhood friends, okay? Now, imagine those same friends. Let's say you haven't spoken to one of them for like a year. It's very common, right? It happens, right? There's a distance between you. A year has gone by and you've not met them. Maybe every now and again a message or something. And then imagine when you finally meet them, you see them and you say, what happened to us, man? Like, how did we grow apart? Why is our relationship not as strong? Okay, well, the answer is glaring, right? The answer is obvious. It's there, right in front of you. You weren't in touch. You didn't make any effort for one another. You didn't see each other. You didn't message. You didn't call. So of course you grew apart. So isn't marriage a similar relationship? Imagine that you get married and then both of you are working. You're studying, you're working, you're busy, preoccupied, you're doing other things. You don't make time for each other. And then months go by, a year goes by, 2 years go by, and then you sit down and you say to one another, what happened between us? Like at the beginning, our relationship was so strong. Now we've grown apart. What's going on? Well, again, the answer is very obvious. You didn't make the effort. So every relationship requires, of course, an effort. And marriage, more so than any other relationship, requires effort. So I'm not saying that love doesn't exist in marriage. What I'm saying is that that's up to you to decide. It's not a given. It's not an automatic thing that is there in every marriage. It's up to you. So this is why there's a famous author, his name is Dr. Gary Chapman. He wrote this book, which has become like a global thing now, phenomenon. It's called The 5 Love Languages. Maybe you've heard of this, The 5 Love Languages. And they say that essentially every person has a love language, right? In other words, what that means is, essentially what that means is that imagine you have like a couple in a marriage, okay, and one of them speaks, let's say, Spanish. The other one speaks Mandarin, okay, and they're married. And they speak to each other every single day without learning the other language, okay? And then they get frustrated after some time because they're like, I'm trying to tell you, this is what I wanted to eat. You made, mandi, but I wanted, this dish. Imagine there's communication, you're at odds with each other, right? So likewise, what he's trying to say is that the same way that wouldn't work, okay, or it would be very difficult, unless the only solution is that the person who's speaking Spanish, right, learns some Mandarin. The one who's speaking Mandarin learns a bit of Spanish, and then they get to communicate more effectively, okay? Likewise, every single one of us, we have a love language, meaning that not all of us, feel or receive love the same way as the other. So we have a different love language, right? So let's say the wife in one relationship, right? Her love language is, from the 5 love languages, one of them is words of affirmation. So this is what Dr. Gary Chapman says. Words of affirmation is one. So her love language is, whenever she cooks something or whenever she wears something nice, she wants to be complimented. She wants you to go out of your way to give her a compliment or to say something and to affirm, right? But you never do that. You have the food, she wears something nice, you don't say anything, you just kind of ignore her, right? Now she does not feel loved, okay? Because her primary love language is words of affirmation. But let's say you assume that her love language is, let's say, gifts. This is one of the 5 love languages, giving gifts. So so often, you buy her a gift. Now she may appreciate the gift, but her primary love language is what? Words of affirmation. So you're not saying anything day to day. There's no complimenting, there's none of this, right? So she will, even though you think you're making an effort, but it's like you speaking Mandarin to that Spanish person. It's not making sense, the relationship. Okay, likewise, your love language might be acts of service, right? You want someone to go out of their way and to do something for you. This is how you feel loved, right? But for the other person, again, they might be showing you a different love language, okay? Let's say, again, they're giving you words of affirmation. So whenever you wear something nice, whenever you've done a task in the house, they say to you, Jazakallah khair, I really appreciate it, you're such a superstar, whatever, right? They're praising you. This means nothing to you, right? Because you want something else to show you that you feel loved. Anyway, so the concept, interesting as a book, I'd recommend you to read, The 5 Love Languages. But essentially, you learn about your partner throughout the marriage. And you start to learn, okay, these are the things that they appreciate, that they like. This is their primary love language. That's how the love remains strong in the marriage. because it's effort. And it's the small things, honestly. Again, one of the biggest deceptions of social media is that love or romance in a marriage is all about the big things, like you go on a big holiday, or you go on a dinner date or something, right? These are good. Like you should have these every so often if possible. You go on a holiday, you go abroad, you have some dinner dates. But actually, the thing that is most effective are the smallest things. The smaller things in a relationship, in a marriage, right? The small acts, the small gestures, the small compliments, the small gifts, the small, going out of your way, thoughtfulness, a message. These things are the most effective things, right? So this is how to keep that, you could say, the love strong within a person's marriage or within a relationship, right? So moving on from love now. Okay, so we spoke about this love concept. We've broken it down. Okay, for those who are, again, not married. Okay, for those who are not married. Okay, again, one of the most common problems that I found from those who are looking to get married is, okay, so I know, let's say, I've spoken to someone, right? But I don't know what to actually say to them or what to ask them or how to find out whether they are a good person or not. Yeah, because everybody wants to marry a good, suitable, compatible person. But how do you figure that out? Now, here's the thing. In Western society, this is what's become common. Not just what's become common, it's become widespread, it's become accepted, it's become the norm. So much so that if you don't follow the norm, you're seen as the weird one. And what's become common and accepted is what is nowadays known as dating. I mean, this is the mindset, right? That the only way that I can get to know someone is if I go out with them on multiple dates and get to know them in this way. This is what's been, and now subhanAllah, I see it even in the UK. I see young Muslims who, genuinely believe now that the only way I can get to know someone is if you go out with them, if you spend time with them, otherwise how do you get to know someone truly, right? Because why? This is what everyone else does in the world. Everyone else is doing this. This is the norm. This is accepted. In fact, if I don't, then people will look at me funny and say, you Muslims, you don't even go out with people, you don't even have dates. Like, how do you get to know them? They try and make you feel bad, okay? So they feel pressured almost to do this. But then this is what I say, this whole dating concept, right? Firstly, it is a very, very modern phenomenon, right? It's a very modern phenomenon, meaning that what I mean by this is globally, universally, up until the 2000s, let's just say, right? Across the border, dating was never normal. It was never a thing. People always got married through, what we call through families, through some conversations which were mediated, which had, chaperones. Yeah, this was always the norm. Even in Western society, like I give the example of the UK, like in England, right, which was once upon a time, not long ago, less than 2 generations back, so 40, 50 years ago, in England, if you look at the history, of course it was predominantly a Christian country, right, and it would have been almost not even abnormal, it would have been shameful for a family, like a Christian household, for them to know that their daughter and their son had gone out alone and in khalwa, in seclusion, and gone out dating or something. This would have been completely unacceptable in that society. These are non-Muslims we're talking about. This is in the West, right? But now what's happened, just within less than 2 generations, is this is the norm now. Because since post-2000s, dating apps, people going out, just the kind of acceptance of people just meeting up, hookup culture, it's just become normal. So unfortunately, this is influencing Muslims, that when it comes to getting married, they think this is the norm now. If I don't go out with this person, then how do I get to know them? But then how did people get to know each other before, right? We've overcomplicated it, right? So when it comes to getting to know someone, there's a few things. One of the things is, of course, you need to know the setting, right, involving family. Like how I said before, there would be chaperones. You have chaperones involved, right? And it's not a restriction. Young Muslims say, this is restricting me. Islam is too strict, right? Islam's not letting me, do what I want. Yeah, that's kind of the point of religion. It's there not as a restriction, but as a preventative measure, actually, as a protection for you as an individual, as a society, right? It's there to protect you, the man, the woman, all parties involved. So it's not necessarily a restriction. Don't see religion as it's restricting me, right? But see it as it's a protection for me, right? Because otherwise, we know in these situations how things can get out of hand, how people are very weak, right? And if you take things on yourself and you decide to go down the route yourself and do whatever, then this is where the doors are wide open for anything to happen. So it's there in place. Okay, now let's say you're in a situation where you're able to now speak to someone, right, that you're interested to marry and to get to know. Again, what do you ask this person? Lots of young Muslims that I've spoken to are extremely lost in this process, right? And they end up going and talking for months. Months go by, and they're still talking, right? Sometimes half a year goes by. I've met young Muslims who have been speaking for 1 year. 1 year of their life has passed by and they're still speaking. And they're still not sure whether they should marry this person or not. So something really wrong is happening here. If 1 year of your life has passed and you've invested that much time in one person and you still aren't sure whether to marry them or not, either you're doing something wrong, you're both doing something wrong, or you both need help, right? You both need guidance. So most of the time what happens is within these conversations, they are completely irrelevant conversations that are being had. It's not helping them get to actually know who the other person is, right? Because there's a middle ground. You have the extreme that I spoke about, which is the dating culture, right? Where you go out with someone, you do whatever you want, as if that will guarantee anything. That guarantees nothing, by the way, the dating side. And then on the other side, you could call it an extreme, which is, okay, you don't even speak to the person, you don't even see this person, and you decide to marry them. Just kind of go in blind, hope for the best. That's also not what Islam is saying, that you just marry whoever. First person that comes, okay, khalas, let's see how it goes. That's not tawakkul. It's not how tawakkul works, right? You don't just decide like that. There's a process. There's a vetting, there's speaking to this person, there's families involved, you see the other person, are you attracted to this person, are you compatible? There's a way. You do it with some kind of like measures, some kind of, with some things in place, and then you decide, Bismillah, right? But it shouldn't be a prolonged process. You can have a number of meetings with a person over a few months, and within that short amount of time, you can decide, okay, is this person the right person for me? But you have to be, like I always say, effective in this process. You have to have some preparation involved in the process. You can't just go into it and think, okay, this is going to work out, right? So again, most people, they don't know what they're looking for. What are you looking for, right? What kind of person are you looking for? At least know what you want. Again, common question, like brothers I've asked before, brother, what are you looking for in a spouse? And the brother says, I'm looking for a practicing sister. That's it, that's his answer. And if I were to ask him further, which I do, what's your definition of a practicing sister? It's just a term, that we use nowadays, a practicing sister. What does that even mean? He doesn't even know. Because to one person, practicing means this person prays 5 times a day. To another person, practicing means this person is like studying the Quran and, full-time talib al-ilm, student of knowledge. I don't know. What do you mean by practicing? They don't even know. So I'm looking for a good person. We're all looking for a good person to marry. Who's going to say I'm looking for a bad Muslim to marry? Who's going to say I'm looking for a bad person? Nobody's going to say. You don't even know what you're looking for. You can't even define what kind of person you want. So now, of course, if you're now speaking to someone and you don't even know what you're looking for, then the questions you're asking are going to be random. But if you know, okay, this is the kind of person I want, this is my basic criteria. I'm not saying that you have a list of 20 different items and you're very specific. No. You just have a small list of, these are the kind of things I'm looking for, certain qualities or certain pointers that I'm looking for in terms of deen. This is the kind of thing, this is my definition of practicing based on what I'm like. Maybe in terms of family. Okay, by the way, generally speaking, like to make it easier, there are 3 key areas that you look at for marriage in terms of like compatibility. 3 key areas for compatibility in marriage. And to make it easy, they are the 3 Fs. Letter F, 3 Fs. What are they? Faith, family, and finances. faith, family, finances. If you can have some compatibility in these three areas, these are, you've got the main things. Of course, there's other things, yeah. Faith is your deen, and within that, what's a person's religious background? What's a person's character like? Their relationship with their faith. That's the most important thing. And then, what's the other one? Family, right? What does family entail? Family would entail, okay, yes, that person's family. That's part of it. The person you're looking to marry, what's their family like? Their family like, that's important. Again, it's a common misconception that, okay, when I get married, I'm marrying the person, the individual. That's it. It's just me and them. But you have to factor in their family as well. Especially if they have a close relationship with their family, with their parents, with their siblings, you can't just discard and ignore them after marriage. You have to have a working relationship with your in-laws. Yeah? And so this is good. And also, not that I'm saying that the family defines the individual, because sometimes, a lot of times, the person you're marrying could be completely different to the family. But naturally, the culture of that family, the upbringing of that family, the people in that family, it says something about that person. Yeah. So family, yes, involves their family, but also family means the second F for family. It also means that not just their relationship with their family, but also future, like in terms of family and what do they want for their future in terms of family. Yeah. And then the third is finances. Finances is all the other practical things like career, income, yeah, ambitions. These things fall under finances, which is important to factor in, yeah, when you're getting married. So usually when you check these three things, and if these three things are somewhat in check, then alhamdulillah, these are the main things, right? Of course, now you can have other preferences, but your preferences, right, your likes, your wants aren't the most important thing. It doesn't mean that if you don't find everything, you have a list, and if it's not checked everything, then you can't marry this person. No, like some people, they say, I would like to marry a person who has a good sense of humor, who's funny. Okay, now imagine they check all the main boxes, but they're not a funny person from what you've seen. And you say, okay, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to marry you because you're not funny. Firstly, how do you know maybe they are, but just in the setting, they weren't funny. You didn't see that side of them, right? Or it could be that maybe, even if they're not funny, if they're in England we say dry, you're dry. The joke was dry, basically, right? It needs Vaseline. The joke is very dry. Okay, this is our lingo. So imagine the person is very dry. Okay, no sense of humor. Fine, but that's not make or break for your relationship. Yeah. It's not. Imagine if the person has good deen and good, like finances and family, but you say, no, they don't make me laugh. Come on, right? You can work, you can make do, right? Without certain things. So you have wants and preferences, fine. That's a bonus. But the core areas, especially compatibility, what we're saying is that you don't marry based on just the love or even attraction. Is attraction important, by the way, when it comes to getting married, do you think, in Islam? Is it important? It's important. Yeah, the Prophet mentioned this in hadith. You look at a person's, are you attracted to this person? Many Sahaba came to the Prophet and they would say, we wish to get married, and the Prophet would ask them, have you seen the woman? If not, go and see her. See if there's a sense of attraction. It's important. But even attraction, let's say out of 100, I've asked this before, out of 100, how much would you place attraction, percentage-wise? Some brothers, mashallah, say 80%. 80% attraction, so only 20% what? Deen and family and everything in 20% fit that in, cram that in. 80% attraction, Allahu Akbar. 80%. No, it's the opposite. 20% attraction. 80% everything else. Attraction is important, but it's not the foundation of your marriage. And again, I always explain, and especially the younger ones, before marriage, maybe they don't quite understand this, because their definition of attraction is only one definition, and that is physical attraction, the way a person looks. But actually, as you develop and mature in your relationship, what you will find is that there are different levels of attraction. Physical attraction, important. But guess what? You could be attracted, or you could find attractive your spouse's, it could be their intellectually, right? How eloquent they are, certain things that they do, right? There's other things you find attraction in. This is actually, as you mature, it's not just about looks anymore. Because as we all know, looks, it's not always going to stay the same, right? If it does, Allahumma barik, great. But if not, as with most people, you change, right? Your body changes over time. Every few years, there's going to be a change. But there's other things you find attraction in. You could be attracted to just the way their character. A person's character could be the most attractive thing to you. Yeah, okay, physically, good, you're attracted to them. But in terms of their character, that's even more. So when you marry, the most important things are going to be the deen and the character of this person. Even in the Quran and the Sunnah, if you look at marriage, when marriage is discussed, even in the Quran, you will find there's not much like fiqh of marriage in the Quran. We always talk about the fiqh, the legality, right? One of my teachers, he coined this term, which is legality versus reality. Yeah, legality versus reality. Legality, okay, yeah, the do's and don'ts, the T's and C's, the small print. Okay, it's important. The fiqh, the halal, haram. Okay, good. Know this. This is like a good foundation. But the reality is not. You don't wake up every day saying, with a tick box and saying this is halal, this is haram. This is not how we live our lives, right? You look at the spirit of marriage, the spirit. And in the Quran and Sunnah, when you look at what Allah mentions a lot of times, what the Prophet mentions is always something to do with character, right? The way you treat other people, right? The way you've made this person feel. This is what it talks about, yeah? So in marriage, the most important thing, honestly speaking, is character. Is the most important. This is why the Prophet, he said in the hadith, and in this hadith he addresses the awliya, he addresses the parents, the guardians, right? Saying to them that if a person comes, right, and in brackets we say the person has come basically asking for your daughter's hand in marriage, your niece's hand, your sister's hand in marriage, okay? If they have come and their deen and khuluq is pleasing to you, right? Deen, so religious background, khuluq, person's character, right? If these two things are pleasing to you, right, then he says فَزَوِّجُوهُ, get them married. So get them married. He says, if not, then there will be, right, corruption, fasadun arid, right, widespread corruption on the earth, right, if you don't do this. Meaning that if good people are coming and proposing, right, and they have good sense of deen, good sense of character, and we're saying, no, I'd rather have the person with a higher salary. No, I'd rather have the person with this, right? But the person might have an average salary, an average whatever, but deen and khuluq is up here, and we're saying no, then the Prophet is warning us of major corruption that will spread on the land. Right? People will end up getting frustrated and end up going and resorting to things that are not permissible perhaps, right? Many things can happen, can go wrong here. So the Prophet, he's saying that the two most important, deen, khuluq. Right? And these are two things. Anyway, marriage aside, whether you're looking to get married, whether you're already married, marriage aside, these are the two things we're supposed to invest the most in anyway. Yeah, not for another person, for ourselves. Deen we're supposed to constantly be improving. Yeah, none of us can say that I'm comfortable now with my deen, with my level of practice, with my level of religiosity. None of us can say I've made it to the highest level now. My salah is up here now. I don't need to improve my quality of salah. My everything, my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my level of taqwa, my iman, right? My level of knowledge, ilm, everything, I'm okay now. I've made it. None of us can say this. Deen, we're supposed to constantly be improving, right? Salah, every day sometimes is different. So some days you're tired, so your quality of salah has come down. Other days you have more time, so you can spend more time on salah. Every day you're trying to improve your deen. And khuluq, on the other hand, like I said, is so important. You think about Khadija radiallahu anha and the Prophet ﷺ, one of the best marriages ever, right? What did Khadija radiallahu anha see in the Prophet ﷺ that made her want to marry him? What was it? It was the fact that he was Sadiq, Al-Amin. Khadija radiallahu anha, by the way, was at a point where if you study the seerah, she was not really intending to get married again. She had been married previously twice, right? She wasn't really intending to get married again. And she, had business dealings that were happening on her behalf. And every person she worked with, they were cheating her, deceiving her, right? Betraying her trust. But then comes this man, alayhi salatu wasalam, right? And she's never seen a man as honest, as upright, right? As truthful as him. And these are the qualities that lead her to then want to marry him, alayhi salatu wasalam, right? The fact that he was truthful and honest, meaning his character. These are amazing characteristics and traits to have, right? Whereas if a person doesn't have good character, is ill-mannered, a person has a bad temper, a person is impatient, a person is hasty, a person is stubborn, right? These qualities are not good qualities. People won't want to marry you if you have these kind of qualities, right? And I'm pretty sure you wouldn't want to marry someone knowing that they have these kind of qualities. You wouldn't want to, right? You would want to make sure that they work on these qualities, or these qualities are no longer there, right? So, as we say, that you look in the Quran, you look in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, you will find that character is the most important thing, right? If we can build our character, right, then even if the looks fades away after some time, even if other things are no longer there, but a person still has good character, then this marriage will be long lasting, because you want to be around good people, right? You don't want to be friends with a person who's rude constantly to you. You want to be friends with someone who's good and kind, right? You never want to be friends with someone who's harsh and treats you in a bad way. You most likely will distance yourself from a friend who does this, right? But you will always be around people who are good. People will always remember. One of my teachers once said, it's amazing. Actually, when you think about it, it's so true. He said that at the end of the day, all people will care about is how you made them feel. When you leave this world, the first thing that people say, when a person has passed away, what's the first thing people say? Mashallah, his brother, every time I came to the masjid, he was always smiling. He was always such a pleasant person to be around. He always what do we talk about? We talk about how they made you feel. If they made you feel good, you will always remember that person. You will make dua for that person, rahimahullah. But if a person you were around them and they always put you down, this person always criticized you, this person never had good manners, never smiled, none of this, right? You're going to remember these things. Wallah, even if they did other things, they achieved things in life, you're not going to remember those things. You just remember, how did they make me feel? So if they were to leave this world, you'll remember that. That's what you're going to remember. So likewise with us, my teacher would say, people will remember the way you made them feel. In marriage, you have to make your spouse feel, show them goodness, show them kindness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says, وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, right? Accompany them with goodness and kindness, right? The Prophet, he said, خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِ. The best of you are those who are best to their family, to their spouses. He says, وَأَنَا خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِ. And I am the best of you to my own family, to my spouses, right? The Prophet is showing, this is the level. If you want to be the best, you're going to be the best to your spouses and family. It starts at home. A lot of times, it's very easy in the public sphere, in the public space, outside of the home, to be nice to people. You come to the masjid, you want to impress. Assalamu alaikum, brother, how are you? MashaAllah, yeah, good. And people think, wow, this person has such good character, right? But then when you go home, right, you have the character, na'udhu billah, of a Fir'aun. You go home and now, you're a tyrant, right? You want your family to fear you, because that's what you think this is what a man is, right? You walk in the house, everybody should sit up straight, your children are, oh no, dad's home now. This is kind of like, maybe some of us, it's triggering some memories maybe growing up. This is how I felt. Yeah, dad's home now. No, of course, this is not what love and respect is necessarily, that everyone's on edge around you. A sign of a person who's of good character is that, yeah, of course you can demand respect. People have more respect for you out of their love for you, genuine respect, not just because of fear, right? But you go home and, people should love, your spouse, your children should love to be around you. They want you to be around. Not that as soon as you've left the door, okay, now we can be ourselves. Imagine if your spouse is always on edge around you. This is not it's not a healthy relationship. That they can't even be themselves around you. Again, Umar radiallahu anhu, he has a statement, by the way. And he says, and again, this statement, maybe today when some people hear it, they're like, oh, I don't know. It's like sometimes you want to pick and choose. You know when you hear a statement which you don't agree with, this is the only time when we say, is this sahih though? I don't know. But when you hear a statement that you like, that's in line with your thinking, you say, yeah, I don't care if it's daif. I will make an excuse for that, right? This is the way we operate. No, the truth is the truth, isn't it? You accept, right? So Umar radiallahu anhu is a narration where he says that, look, you know, when you're at home, when you're with your family, when you're at home, okay, how do you act? He says, like, be childlike, be like a child, play with them, you know, be playful, be, you know, that's how you should be. But he says, when it comes to taking on responsibility, then you be a man, right? Now you have to be a man. But, you know, our understanding of being a man is even at home, we have to always have, you know, this thing. Outside, we have this thing. No. He says, when you're at home, you're like almost like a child. You play. Imagine your kids, you don't even play with them. You know, like the famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he kisses Al-Hassan Al-Hussein anhuma, and this Bedouin man sees the Prophet ﷺ kissing his grandchildren, and he says, Wallahi, I have 10 children, and I've never kissed one of them in my life. And he's proud of this, subhanAllah. He's proud. 10 kids, I've never kissed them. And what does the Prophet ﷺ say? What can I do if Allah has taken all mercy from your heart, right? And the Prophet ﷺ says in another narration, what does he say? He says, Man la yarham, la yurham. The one who does not show mercy will not be shown mercy by Allah. This is a sign of having rahmah in your heart, that you show affection and love and kindness to your children and to your spouse as well. Imagine you're around and you're not even like this at home. This is not how we act in a relationship, right? So anyway, this is Umar radiallahu anhu. This is why I'm saying that sometimes when you say this, some brothers especially, they don't want to hear this statement. They're like, oh, I don't know, is this correctly attributed to Umar radiallahu anhu? Because Umar, we think of him as the prime example of a male, right? Of a man. I can't imagine Umar radiallahu anhu being like this at home. Trust me, he was. When it came to being humble, when it came to crying in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he was humble. Trust me, you know, a man doesn't always mean that you have to always put yourself on this thing, right? No, yes, but he said when it comes to taking on responsibility, when it comes to times where you have to be a man, now it's not time, now there's no time to be like a child now. Now you don't show immaturity and irresponsibility. Now you got to be a man. Now you got to do what you got to do, right? This is what it means to be a man. So, you know, these are just a few things that we're saying about maintaining, basically. So actually I was talking about before marriage, you know, the kind of things you look into, and we said that the most important thing is a character, right? Again, whether you're not married, whether you're already married, character is something that is a constant, that we have to keep maintaining, right? And how do we do this? It's very easy for me to sit here and say, okay, brothers, sisters, have good character, right? But the question you ask is how? Right? It's not as simple as just saying good character. It's not as simple as you know, coming to the masjid and listening to a few hadith about the character of the Prophet ﷺ, and then you walk out saying, okay, mashallah, now that's it, I have good character. You hear one khutbah, one khatira about character, and now you walk out saying, you go home and you say, mashallah, this is it. I think I'm changed now. No, character building is a very difficult thing to do, by the way. Right? And it's a process of repetition. It's a process of repetition. Like sometimes you have to force. It's not a nice thing when you say it like this, but sometimes you have to force being nice, right? And then you got to do it so much so that it becomes like a genuine part of your life, right? Like let's say you rarely give charity, as an example, right? What do you have to do? You have to get yourself into a habit of constantly giving charity until it becomes second nature to you. Right? So that's how it is. Initially, it feels like it's fake. You know, they say fake it till you make it. Right? You heard this before? Fake it till you make it. Actually, you gotta. Sometimes it feels ingenuine, but you know the intention. It's for the sake of Allah. But initially, it feels like a struggle. It's like prayer, salah. Some people when they struggle to pray, you gotta force yourself up for fajr. It's just then it becomes second nature. So likewise with character, like the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Innamal ilmu bitta'allum." He said, "Ilm, right? Knowledge is gained through ta'allum." What is ta'allum? It means the process of constantly seeking knowledge. You don't just come to one lecture and gain knowledge. But if you come every single time regularly to different classes and lectures, that's how you gain knowledge. And likewise, the Prophet he said, وَإِنَّمَا الْحِلْمُ بِالتَّحَلُّمِ. Right? So hilm, which is like forbearance, patience. How is it developed? Through tahallum, which means the process of constantly putting yourself, or not putting yourself, but being in situations where you have to display patience and, like, you know, forcing yourself almost to be patient. Because the default for the nafs is to take the easy option. And the easy option most of the time is to be impatient or to be hasty. The default is to do the easy thing. The nafs wants the easiest route possible, right? Okay? So in a situation when you're faced with having to be patient, and I'm not talking about a massive calamity, musibah, afflicts, and then you have to be patient. I'm talking about the small things in life. You're driving and, what was the name of the highway we were on today? 407? 407? Oh, Allah, this is the most ajib thing I've seen in my life. We went to Markham today, and with traffic, on the non-thing route, it showed 1 hour, 20 minutes. But if you take the 407, 22 minutes. How's that even possible? We're taking one route and paying a bit of money, it saves you 1 hour? Allah Akbar. I was like, we don't have this in the UK. UK, if you pay the toll, it saves you 5 minutes. That's it. And even then we think, 5 minutes, Allah Akbar, we saved 5 minutes. Today we saved 1 hour. It's amazing, subhanAllah. Right? So imagine you're driving, traffic or whatever, someone cuts you on the road. Okay, that is a test of patience now. Like in that moment, what do you say? Do you start like cursing this guy, right? How do you respond in that situation? But if you're consciously aware, like, no, I have to develop my patience. Now you're going to bite your tongue. You're going to say, okay, khair, I'll let this guy off, no problem. That's a win. That's a win for you. So the next time, it's going to get easier. The next time that's honestly how you build your character. If it's patience, then that's that. If it's something else, if it's like controlling anger, it's that. If it's apologizing, marriage, subhanAllah, one of the biggest problems in marriage that I found is literally a case of whenever one of the spouses does something wrong, the one who's done something wrong is just too stubborn to realize that they did something wrong. And they're just not willing to apologize. And even if you're not married, by the way, sometimes you learn when you're in situations like you've had an argument with your friend or family member and you know you're wrong, there's no accountability, right? So if you're married and you don't apologize or you don't own up, you don't own your mistakes, there's no accountability, then you're going to struggle because your spouse is going to be like, come on, I want to see some accountability from you. I want to see you own this. I want to see you apologize. And then that's it. We're happy to move on. But then you hold on to this. No. And then, one day goes by, silent treatment, all of this. It's unnecessary. But imagine you're a person who struggles. Okay, you struggle with apologizing. Now, the next time you get into an argument, the next time you make a mistake, you force yourself. It's the most bitter thing to do, to apologize. Sometimes it's the most humiliating thing to do. What is it? It's like you have to put your ego to one side. Nobody wants to lose a debate. Sah? Nobody wants to lose a debate. Everybody wants to win the argument, especially in the social media age. Everyone has to have the last comment. And if someone comments something back, you sit there and you think of, your imagination goes wild, and you think of the best comeback. Then when you type it and you press enter, it's the best feeling. You're like, you picture like everybody is standing up and giving you a standing ovation or something. You think, that's how you feel. That's your ego. That's your nafs, telling you got to win this argument. Wallahi, nobody cares about that argument. Nobody, you're insignificant, right? But you think you're something now, right? In a marriage, it's the same thing. It's like, all you have to do, even if, it hurts you, even if it hurts your ego, you just say, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have done this. You own up to the mistake, and you know what? That will solve like days worth of issues and arguments. They're happy now. That's all they wanted to hear. Khalas, right? So if that's the case, then each time you have to train yourself. You get into an argument, you apologize, that's it. Even if it hurts you, no problem. Put your ego aside. So a lot of these things, I always say that it's manageable. In marriage, a lot of problems are manageable. But the issue is, before people get married, the expectation they have, right? That they think going into it, this is what marriage is going to be like. But if you have the right expectation going into marriage, then you'll realize that, okay, this is the reality on the ground. This is how it is, okay? So you're not going to be expecting anything. And likewise, when you are married, right, it's just a case of ensuring that most problems, there's a fix to it. Yes, there's going to be cases, absolutely, where things have spiraled out of control. Okay, there's extreme cases. It's just not workable. It's just the relationship's not working anymore. fine, of course, you need to then seek external help. But a lot of the times within yourselves as a couple, there's a way out. The problem can be fixed, right? But you just got to identify it before it gets out of hand. So these are a few things I wanted to share. Normally at the end, we've already spoken about the things that you should focus on the things that you should constantly improve, the kind of qualities, characteristics. We've spoken about this. I didn't really speak about for those who aren't married, the kind of questions you ask. Like I said, sometimes the process can drag on for a long time, where you're speaking to someone or you're trying to get to know them and you think that dating is the only answer. There's ways of asking questions. So what I normally advise is, if you're speaking to someone and you're getting to know someone for marriage, then the kind of questions that you ask them are not closed questions. They are not questions that are irrelevant. So for example, you don't ask them, what's your favorite color? Thinking that this is, mashallah, some kind of amazing question that you've come up with. This question, them responding to this and giving you an answer, is not helping you get closer to understanding who this person really is. All of those conversations can be had later, inshallah. If you decide to marry this person, all of those things you can find out. But you want to go into it, like I said, knowing what you want, knowing what you're compatible in, or finding out what you're compatible in, asking the questions that are open, not closed. Don't ask yes or no questions. You don't ask someone, are you a good Muslim? And they're going to say what? Yes. Do you pray salah? Yes. If you ask these kind of questions, it's not going to help you. But if you keep it open-ended, and you make them think, and you get genuine answers from them, then that will be more useful for you. So we've spoken about that, and loads of other things we can say. Just, I guess, before Maghrib, if there are any questions or any points that anyone would like to make, I think we can, inshallah, conclude with this. Lots of things, like I said, I haven't covered. It's a very short space of time. So inshallah, through the questions, perhaps we can go into some other areas. Yes, start from here.
How do you navigate towards trying to look for something, especially in dating nowadays with social media? It feels like nowadays, you either become, I've read reports or something, almost 80% of my generation, Gen Z, if they're meeting their spouses or at least their close ones, they call them. So how should we even first try to interact, especially I'm in university?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to a library and just pull a sister or whatever, or is it, I don't know, how should we navigate?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's the most common question that we get, which is, from my observations, there's three common ways that people are getting married today. The first, still the most common way, and you could argue one of the most effective ways of getting married, is not online, is still through, recommendations, family recommendations. I don't know if you guys have a culture here of CV, biodata, resume type thing. Do you have this culture or no? Right? Because in the UK it's very common, where you literally have your picture, you have some basic details, your height, not your weight, but your height and your occupation and these types of things. Okay, occupation and maybe a few lines about you. So and then this kind of gets passed on, or a family member passes on to someone else, and this is kind of like their introduction to you. Okay, because they might not know who you are, but because it was passed on, they're from a different city, they can see, okay, yeah, from this I'm perhaps interested, so let me then speak to this person and so on. So this is actually still the most effective way, and it makes sense why it's the most effective way, because there's nothing better than a personal recommendation, isn't it? Yeah, let's say a family member of yours knows you better than anyone else knows you. So they know what kind of person maybe would match with you. They recommend this. That's how it happens. So that's a common way. I get that that's not always practical for every person. Maybe you live in an area where there's not many Muslims. Maybe you don't live with family. Whatever it might be. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, the most common way of people getting married today or finding someone is what you call you could call it the organic way. So it's not necessarily a way where they're going out of their way to find someone, but it's happening naturally, where you're in university, you're in the workplace, and you come across someone maybe that you are interested in, that you might like, and then what do you do? Like maybe you establish that there's some kind of interest mutually, and then you bring your family, whoever, like into the picture, and you have, like you take the process forward. This is actually the most, I would say, this is catching up really quickly with the first. It's becoming really common. Like in the UK, you just come across someone that you like, you go, you take it to your family. And I actually think that this is, like me personally, you could disagree with me. I actually think this is like a great way of finding someone, because it kind of happened naturally. And as long as you go about it the right way and you're able to get people involved early on in the process, I think it's a great way, because it's one of those win-win situations where a lot of people out there are struggling to find spouses, right? They're really struggling. They've been searching for a long time. But if you're in a situation where you've come across someone and you can see who they are, you've kind of got an idea of them, because it's not like a one-time thing where you've seen them once. If you're working with that person, or if you're going to university, you've seen them multiple times, so you have a basic idea of what they're like, and then you go to your family and you evolve. That's actually the second. And the third is what you mentioned, which is becoming increasingly common, is online or apps. This is becoming really, really common. Now, I understand that this is not to everyone's taste. Some people really want to avoid this route. Other people aren't comfortable with it. So it really depends, honestly. The way I see it is everything that exists today is, like social media is a tool. And any tool can be used for good or bad. And there are many people that I know, not personally, but I hear who abuse these tools, and there's many horror stories that come out from apps and so on. But likewise, at the same time, on the other hand, I also know people I know personally who have used this in the right way to find someone, and they eventually married this person. For me, it's just a tool. It's like, for example, the CV, the resume thing we mentioned. It's like that, but it's just in an app form. And if you came across someone, and again, like I always say, have other people involved in the process as early on as possible, to avoid things going wrong. You have people involved, and like let's say your family, they should know that you're looking to get married. There's no secret here. Like sometimes we're embarrassed to admit that we're of age and we're looking to get married. So it's like, for me to admit that to my friend circle or to admit that to my family, it's almost like a shameful thing, right? Well, if they don't know that you're looking to get married, and your friends don't know that you're looking to get married, then you have way less chance of ever getting married then. But if people know that you're looking to get married, then they will keep an eye out for you. They'll help you in the process, right? So it's like any other tool that exists, social media, any other tool. If you use it in the right way, you involve the right people, you're not just kind of going down your own rabbit hole and doing whatever you want, then this is just another means, I would say, of potentially of finding someone. So yeah, these are the three ways, most common ways. It's very difficult to then, like actively find one of these ways. It's just, you have to explore. And these things take time as well, as you know. It doesn't, for some people, maybe it happens overnight. For most people, it takes time. So you just gotta keep your options open. You have to let people know within your circle, family, friends, etc., that you're looking to get married. That's a great start. Start with that. Explore different options. And then finally, of course, keep making dua and praying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala finds the best person for you. These are the most practical steps, I would say. Allah. Yes, brother.
So just two questions. The first real question is, when people say they want to get to know each other and they want to talk on the phone or want to start texting before they actually begin something, how would you kind of battle that or combat that?
The way I would combat this is, I would say, I use the word formalize things. So what do I mean by this? So let's say you have a meeting in your workplace, okay, with your manager at work. Your manager says to you at 3 p.m. we have a meeting. It will last for 1 hour. This is the kind of agenda on the meeting. So this is a formal meeting. So when 3 p.m. arrives, you're going to go to the meeting. It will start. Now, if you're meeting, I don't think most of the time the meeting is going to look like you're going to go out to a restaurant, you're going to sit there, have a cup of coffee, and just be there for hours on end. That's not professional, right? There's going to be a meeting, there's an agenda, you've got to go and so likewise with texting or phone call. Firstly, texting is not the best way anyway, right? So it should be either face-to-face, or if it is a phone call, fine. But there has to be a formal element to this. What does that mean? It means that if you just pick up the phone at any given time and call this person, they pick up the phone. Well, like, what are you exactly talking about right now? It's very informal and it's too open to things. Like, what are you going to talk about, right? But if you have like an agreement, like let's say even your families, etc. No, there's an agreement. Okay, this time we're gonna speak maybe for half an hour, and let's say you're still getting to know each other, so it's gonna be on certain questions you're gonna ask each other. That way, what it does is when the half an hour comes, when the 30 minutes comes to an end, you know, okay, this is time. And what that does is it adds a level of seriousness as well. Because if it's open-ended, you can be on the phone for 3 hours. What are you talking about for 3 hours? You don't need 3 hours on one conversation with one person for that long. It feels nice, yeah, I know it feels nicer that way. But remember, a person who's looking to get married is not doing it so that they can speak to someone or they can feel good. They're doing it because they don't want to waste time. They want to figure out as quickly as possible, is this person compatible? Is this person the right person for me? That's the main thing I'll say, is just if you formalize it from the beginning, that sets the tone for the rest of the process. If you're very open from the beginning, then it can drag on. So it adds a level of efficiency, I would say, to the process, as opposed to keeping it open and it going on for too long. And your second question, sorry. It's gone. Okay, we'll come back. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The first argument comes is, I want to get to know this person,
Mm-hmm.
and what ends up happening is everyone like start texting. But again, like I agree with you. When I come to them with an argument, like do not do texting, like do either a video call or a Zoom call.
Yeah.
Just to get things going. Their argument is I know texting is much easier.
Yeah.
Connection and
Yeah.
a lot of unwanted doors.
Exactly. Yeah. Texting is very inefficient. It's a very ineffective way. It's the complete opposite. There's no personal connection through texting, actually. But yeah, definitely, I agree. Is it the easier route? Yeah, it's very easy. And if anything, it's almost like a cop-out, you know? It's an easy route because I don't actually need to show who I am. In texting, it's very... And subhanAllah, nowadays we have AI and ChatGPT. Imagine if a person texts me, let's say I'm looking to get married, you know, and I give a very impressive answer. I just need to go prompt it in ChatGPT and send the answer, subhanAllah, and they'll look at the response and say, wow, let me marry this person. You're marrying a robot then, isn't it? You're marrying AI, subhanAllah. This is the dangers we live in now. So no, not texting. You ask a question. I want to see how this person responds. If I ask a question about religion, how important religion, faith, salah is to a person, I don't want to see a text message. Yeah, I pray 5 times a day. I don't want to hear that. I want to see actually what salah means to this person. How, are they prioritizing salah? If they're in the workplace, have they made their own arrangements for prayer in university, in the workplace? If they say that to me, then I can tell this person prioritizes salah. If this person is saying no, actually, and I can tell if they're being genuine in their answer or not. There's nothing can beat that. But yeah, we're in this generation of the texting and nowadays it's not even just text. No words needed. Nowadays it's just emojis. That does the job. Khalas. Emoji says more than words now. This is how people communicate. So no, it's important, and this is why the 2 most important things. This is not just for marriage, of course, but the Prophet ﷺ said, for any important decision you're going to make, if you don't want to regret the decision, if you don't want to fail in this decision, then the 2 things you have to do is what we call istishara and istikhara. These are 2 most important things. Any decision you want to make, right? Istikhara, again, we always have to put the disclaimer, right? I'm sure Shaykh Rasul will agree with me on this, that istikhara is not just a marriage prayer. Sah, Shaykh? People only pray istikhara once in their life. Exactly. Like like the Sharia is not. There's no source of Sharia which is feelings or dreams. Only for the Anbiya. Yeah, dreams is a source of wahi. For us, you pray istikhara and you expect some magic sign. I have a funny story, by the way, a real story, which is I shared this today with Brother Boona when I was with him. There's a brother from the UK. He was looking to get married, and the person he was looking to marry was someone called Maryam. So he did istikhara, and it so happened that that night he went to the masjid for Isha prayer, and the Imam was reciting Surah Maryam. This brother, he walked out of the masjid with the biggest smile on his face, and he pointed to the heavens. He said, Ya Allah, that's it. This is, he was making his decision based on what? SubhanAllah, what you say is, look, if you have done the necessary things, you've tied the camel, right? You've done the vetting, you've communicated, you've got family involved, like you've done all of these things, and then you pray istikhara, and let's say you have a dream or whatever, like this is not even necessary, but let's say you had a feeling or dream or something. You can factor that into your decision, but that can't be the primary reasoning behind your decision. It doesn't make any sense. So what we say is, istishara is actually the first step. Is what is that? Shura, counsel. So you go to trusted people, those of experience, knowledge, right, wisdom, those who have been through this, and you get their opinion on this, right? You involve them in the process. You see what they have to say on this as well. Because there's many things that you think you've covered, but trust me, it hasn't been covered. They'll point it out to you. And then of course, istikhara is the side where you're seeking guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you do these two things, you will not regret the decision. But like I said, it's not just for marriage, it's for any decisions leading up to marriage, post-marriage. If you can do these two things, there'll be a lot of barakah in the decisions that you make. Yeah, it's inshallah time for Maghrib. Jazakumullah khair. Allah bless you. For those who are not married, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you suitable, righteous spouses. Allahumma ameen. For those of us who are married, we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to bless our marriages. Wa jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن